In the year 2200, the research space station known as Copernicus hummed with quiet activity. 1,000 kilometers above the swirling gas giant Helios, sunlight filtered through the artificial atmosphere of the observation lab. The station was manned by a team of 3 scientists, 2 of whom were in the lab working in a state of focus. Dr. Elena Martinez, her short dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, peered intently at the specimen under the microscope, her brow furrowed in concentration, a telltale sign of her relentless pursuit of knowledge. Behind her, Dr. Sarah Chang, petite and perpetually enthusiastic, adjusted a data feed on the hologram projection. Her eyes sparkled with a childlike wonder at the mysteries they were unraveling. Sarah pointed to a peculiar bioluminescent pattern on the squid-like alien life form on her hologram projection. "Elena, look at this!" Her voice, usually brimming with unbridled excitement, was hushed with a hint of awe. The alien life form, captured from the swirling atmosphere of the gas giant they orbited, was unlike anything previously documented. Taking a brief break from her intense concentration, Elena glanced at the hologram. "Fascinating," she murmured, the scientist in her battling with the childlike sense of discovery she hadn't felt since grad school. "Could it be a rudimentary nervous system?" she finally ventured, a question laced with cautious optimism. Suddenly, the lab door hissed open, and Dr. Marcus Williams strode in with a confident air that left no room for doubt about his position as the team leader. A man with a meticulously groomed beard and an air of unwavering authority. His voice, a deep baritone, boomed across the room. "Finally got the environmental chamber calibrated." As Marcus inspected the hologram with a practiced eye, Elena approached him, a sense of anticipation thrumming beneath her usually calm demeanor. "Good timing, Marcus," she said, her voice filled with a quiet excitement that betrayed her usual professional reserve. "We've made a breakthrough in our analysis," she continued, gesturing to the specimen. "We believe this bioluminescent pattern might indicate a primitive nervous system. It could be a key to understanding their communication." The discovery was a breakthrough, a validation of the hours they had poured into their research. The team, isolated for months aboard the research station, thrived on this shared scientific pursuit. Later that day, during a routine examination, an accident occurred. As Marcus was extracting a tissue sample from the alien, a bioluminescent spore erupted, engulfing the room in a pulsating blue light. A collective terrified gasp filled the room. They scrambled out of the lab, hands clamped over their nose and mouth as they escaped. With a swift motion, Elena sealed the door of the observation lab behind them as the alarms rang thunderously, and poised her hand over the red button on the control panel, ready to trigger the weaponized containment field and purge the presumably hostile life form. She paused, as fear quickly morphed into curiosity as the team began experiencing foreign sensations. Thoughts and emotions started bleeding into each other. Images flickered in their minds, glimpses of each other's memories and feelings. "Did you just—" Sarah began, her voice filled with a mixture of wonder and apprehension, uncharacteristic of her usual bubbly demeanor. "Feel that? It's like we're all thinking the same thing." Marcus finished her sentence, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips, a reaction that surprised even himself. The team viewed this unintended connection as a scientific marvel, a direct link to the alien mind. They reveled in the shared knowledge, the ability to anticipate each other's needs, and to understand each other on a deeper level. Elena, ever the pragmatist, found herself cautiously optimistic, while Sarah, the eternal optimist, embraced the connection with wide-eyed enthusiasm. Even Marcus, usually guarded with his emotions, couldn't help but be intrigued by this unforeseen development. Over the next few hours, the connection intensified. Ideas flowed freely, and their research progressed at an unprecedented pace. They named the alien Luminaris, but soon realized they couldn't establish any connection or communication with it. While disappointing, this revelation came with a silver lining. They learned that Luminaris could merge with other living organisms. This revelation prompted them to exercise caution and transfer it to a more secure container within the lab. As the sun set, they basked in a sense of fulfillment, realizing that research which would have likely taken weeks to unravel came undone in mere hours. They stood united, their thoughts weaving together into a symphony of knowledge. But as days passed, the once sterile lab felt different. The initial novelty of the connection wore thin, replaced by a creeping unease. A strange tension crackled in the air, a silent disconnect replacing the vibrant exchanges held days before. Discussions, once filled with passionate debate, had become sterile recitations of the same unified thought. Jokes fell flat, Laughter replaced by forced chuckles that echoed hollowly in the lab. One by one, personalities fractured. Elena noticed a subtle shift in Marcus. His thoughts, once laced with a healthy dose of ambition, took on a domineering tone. He reveled in the power of the collective, suggesting they push their research further, even if it meant venturing into ethically dubious territory. Dr. Sarah Chang, once Sarah the Optimist, began mirroring Marcus's increasingly harsh demeanor, while Elena felt a growing unease gnaw at her. Her thoughts, once distinct and clear, seemed to blur at the edges, merging with the collective consciousness. Panic welled up within her. Initially a marvel, the collective mind now felt like a suffocating cage, threatening to extinguish the spark of individuality. A desperate resistance bloomed within her. During group discussions, this internal struggle began to manifest in subtle ways. A delayed response, a barely perceptible flicker of doubt in her eyes when the others voiced unwavering agreement. This tiny spark of defiance did not escape Marcus's notice. Their once cordial friendship had fractured, replaced by a wary distrust. Elena's attempts to maintain her individuality were met with a steely glint in Marcus's eyes. He saw her resistance not as a scientific curiosity, but as a threat to his growing control. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon of Helios, casting the lab in an orange twilight, Elena confronted Marcus. Her voice, usually measured and calm, trembled with suppressed emotion. "Marcus," she began, her gaze locked on his, "we can't continue down this path. We're losing ourselves to this hive mind." Marcus's jaw clenched, his features hardening into a mask of icy resolve. "And what would you have us do, Elena? Abandon our greatest discovery? Retreat into the darkness of ignorance?" "It's not about abandoning the discovery," Elena countered, frustration edging into her voice. "It's about maintaining our own identities, our own autonomy." The word hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the unified chorus that had become the norm. But Marcus remained unfazed, his arrogance a shield against her pleas. "Autonomy is a luxury we can no longer afford, Elena," he scoffed. "The hive mind represents our future, our evolution. You'll see that in time." Leaving the discussion frustrated, Elena couldn't shake the feeling of failure. Her attempts to persuade Marcus back to reason had fallen short. As she turned away, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Luminaris, growing just slightly, yet noticeably. A wave of nervousness surged within her, but she fought to contain it, unwilling to alarm the group. However, Elena's and Marcus's argument left a chasm between them wider than the swirling gas clouds below, and with each passing sunrise, the tension between Elena and Marcus tightened like a noose. Sarah, caught in the crossfire, found her loyalty to Marcus warring with a gnawing concern for Elena's sanity. Then, one fateful night, as the research station hummed with its usual quiet activity, a sudden noise shattered the tranquility. Alarms blared, their shrill cries slicing through the artificial atmosphere as the emergency lights flickered to life, casting the once familiar lab in an eerie crimson glow. Elena's heart pounded like a frantic rhythm against her ribs as she glanced towards the entrance of the observation lab. Her eyes widened at the sight of Marcus bathed in the harsh red light. With a surge of desperation, Elena raced towards him, but her efforts were in vain as she slammed against the door that had shut just moments before she could reach him. The door sealed Sarah and her inside the room with Luminaris, who was currently out of view but still growing, seemingly feeding off the intense emotions building up between the scientists. Marcus approached the reinforced mirror beside the door, seeking a clearer view of his handiwork. With his face illuminated by the flashing alarms and a chilling smile dancing on his lips, he fixed his gaze on Elena and Sarah. "What are you doing, Marcus?" Elena demanded, her voice laced with fear and accusation. But Marcus's only response was a chilling pronouncement delivered by a communication system with a fanatic glint in his eyes. "Just a necessary step, Elena, for the advancement of science."